Yeah, fuck
Alright,
you.
sorry. It's good.
Yeah, fuck
Alright,
you.
sorry. It's good.
Yeah, fuck.
Alright, cool. Um, alright, that's fixed. That's fixed. I think that's under window capture though, not game capture, or is it? Take that out for now. Alright, so that stays. Alright, we're good. Okay, cool. So, Kuzenbo.
Who is my target?
Alright, let me make sure Master Stack is able to watch. Because this entire thing is for him, so if he's not able to be here, it's kind of pointless.
It would be like you to do the whole thing and then have him pop in and be like, hey.
Yep, so I'm just gonna alt tab real quick and see who's in chat. You and Fuzzy. Alright, cool. Alright, he's watching, he just can't comment. Alright, cool. Alright, so I'm doing that, doing that, doing that. Okay, I just want to make sure everything's good. Alright, cool. So we're gonna go to level 20. We're gonna look at max stats for this god. So base stats for this god, defensive stats. He gets 82 physical protections base level, 48 magical protections. Every single god in the entire game gets the exact same amount of magical protections. It starts at 30, then it's 1 per level. It's 0.9 per level technically. And at level 1, because base means 0, at level 1 then his base is going to be 31 magical protections, and it scales up 0.9 per level, ending up at 48. Fizz is a little bit different. It scales out differently for every single person, and then his max health is 2,500, and that's where you're looking at the health that he has right now, right? Now, when you're looking at your build, you're obviously going to do your Guardian's Blessing. That's your normal start, right? Then for your shoes, you can do your focus shoes. You can also do reinforced. And for what you were talking about, if you're trying to be the I'm going to run at them and draw all of their things out and like kill myself but hopefully not die, go for the reinforced 100% of the time. Then Gauntlet of Thieves is the second item you buy. The reason why is it's the most health effective item in the entire game. Instantaneous 300 HP, and that's really, really, really good. Early game, health is more effective than protections are. Prots, um, reason that prots aren't really that effective that early is because they scale with your level just as power does, right? So you have your base power, you have your base prots, you have your built power, you have your built prots, and so more prots, everyone's power curve and everyone's tank curve is curving, right? Well, something that doesn't really curve that early is just adding on more health they have to chew through. You add on more prots at the base level, and the diminishing effectiveness of the protections is a lot lower when it's at that low of a level, right? Whereas the health is just instantaneous, chunky, like it's hard to go through this. So going the gauntlet instead of that Nemean that you were talking about first, what it does, it gives you 300 HP, right? Now instead of that, if we were to go the Nemean, all right, you've got 70 physical protection, you got 200 mana, all right, but you don't have that extra HP. So at level 1, let's go back to level 1. You're not actually going to be at level 1, but let's say around level 7, level 8-ish, you're at 1400 HP. To put that in perspective, Ama ult base damage is 1000. So you can take 1.5 Ama ults right now if you don't think about prots and how that's going to mitigate some of that damage, right? Whereas alternatively, the gauntlet, and this is before it's stacked at this level, you got 1700 HP plus your mitigations from your passive, and that allows your passive, that works with your passive better because you've got health. So at the passive for the god, every single time he takes 2% of his maximum health, he's granted stacks of damage mitigation, right? So now, when you've got more health, you've got more mitigations without being quite as low. Whereas if you've got like no health, for you to get any meaningful mitigations, then you don't have anything. That's actually one of the reasons that mitigations are so good, is because they stop damage coming in before it hits your protections and health. But if the damage that's coming in still doesn't hit any protection, still doesn't hit any health, because you don't have anything in the way to absorb that blow after it goes past the mitigations, you're not really doing anything. So Gauntlet first, super health effective. Then on top of its 300 health, it gives you an HP 5 for yourself, which is good. But then let's go over to stack items, and then right there, I went to 2900. And that's with the level, and then look at my defense though. 142. I was at, what, 82? I'm not 142. So the cool thing about Gauntlet is it gives you 10 physical protection, 10 magical protection, but also every single stat gives you a protection for each kind, right? So you've got your 50 of each kind, so that's 100 protection, that's 120 prots in one item that I spent 2350 on. So I got 300 health, 15 HP 5, and 120 protections from one item. Now, to put that in perspective, Spirit Robe. Let's spend 150 more, and we get 40 less prots. We don't get any health, and we get some CDR and CCR. Let's look at Mantle, one of the best tank items in the game. You get the same amount of protections, you get a little bit of cooldown reduction, there's no health on it. Good passive, no health on it. Right? And so the Gauntlet early game is the single best item there. Then you're looking at building mitigations because you've been running at them. You've got to look at, all right, what do they have? What do I have? What am I looking at doing? Right? A lot of time here, it's a little bit too early to build a Spirit Robe. Right? The reason why it's a little bit too early to buy a Spirit Robe most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, is because it's 2,500 that you're buying mostly for the passive and the CCR. Cooldown reduction is nice, but you're not getting everything out of it. A lot of people go Sovereignty here. 250 more health, protection, and the aura. A lot of people go Oni Hunter's Garb here. I'm a big fan of Oni Hunter's Garb. You get 100 health, you get 60 more magical protections, you get a bunch of MP5. So between Gauntlet and Oni Hunters, you just never out, you have a lot of good regen. And then you get 9% damage mitigation when you're within, 55 units of 3 enemies. And again, you're just trying to run at them. Right? So you could go Relic there, you could go Oni Hunter's Garb, and then you go Spirit, right? And the reason we do it this way, now we've got health stacked. We've got our base health, we've got another 100, then we got another 300, then we got 100 there. So our mitigations, we don't have a shield in front of a paper target. We have a shield in front of a big fucking turtle who's able to run at people post those mitigations, right? And so the Oni Hunter and the Spirit Robe, as they proc, we're going to go over here. Let's see. Change team. Now, Spirit Robe won't proc, but the Oni Hunter should. As we walk here, 1, 2, and this shows you how close you have to be. So the first one procs this far away. This far away, the first one procs. Then 2, then 3, right? And right now, I take 9% less damage. Period. 9%. That's a good amount. Because that's from every single damage instance. That's not just like, I'm going to take 9% of this lump sum off. That's 9% of every single instance. That's 9% of every single percentage increase. That's really, really, really good. And it can, unlike your protections, right? So right now, with this build, we're already more protections than your entire build was. We're 182 physical protections and 208 magical protections. We're at 3,000 health, and I still have 2 item slots to go. Right? Then on top of that, we have CCR maxed out, crowd control reduction, and then on top of that, I've got 9% mitigations before I get CC'd. Now, again, we talked about I wanted to run into the middle of them. I want to run in the middle of them. I want to do all my abilities. When I press I2, and I want to get CC'd. I want to stand there taking their damage, don't I? Right? That's going to proc my mitigation. So let's say I get down to half health. Let's say I get down to half health. I'm going to get, what is it? How much mitigation? Let's see. It's 1.5 for 2%. So 15. So let's say I'm about half health, 7. Let's say I'm 8% mitigation. So 8 plus 9, that's 17%. Then someone CCs me. I'm going to get another 15% on top of that. right? So I'm above 30% damage mitigated. Then on top of that, I pop my 2. And 30% of the damage I take is reflected back to them. So I'm taking 32-ish% less damage, and then of that damage, I'm reflecting another 30% back. Now, that is reduced, right? It's not 30% of the whole, it's 30% of the damage after the mitigations, okay? So when he takes the damage. And mitigations work before he takes the damage. So what that'll end up being is I'm missing about another 15% of damage, right? So that's 45% of their damage that I'm just straight up not taking. And I have 2 items left in this build. That's why this combo is so insane. That's why it's really good. It's one of those things where you just don't die. Then to finish this out, I'm looking for mantle on tanks where you want to just run at them and be in the middle of them and just literally just W key. You want to be in the middle of their entire team. Disruption tanks, lockdown tanks, tanks where you just say, I'm here and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm running at your squishy. There's nothing you can do about it. Mantle is a phenomenal item. It's like Mag Eyes, but with more prots, CDR, and it gives you CC immunity when you need it, rather than when you're standing 18 meters away from someone and they hit you with a fucking Bologna Scourge, and you just go, oh, I guess my Mag Eyes is fucking irrelevant now. What Mantle does is say, I'm going to dive, I'm going to get my CC immunity when I need it, when shit starts to go south, when I start to get low. The item gives you 60 prots of both kinds, and then the second you get below 30% health, you unleash a shockwave that stuns every enemy in 20 units, and you gain that CC immunity, right? Now, let's think about this. Let's think about how effectively tanky this next item made us, alright? So, our protections went up. We're 242, 268. Our protections went up. Then on top of that, let's say we have our mitigations around half, right? That's really good. Let's say we pop our 2, right? We're reflecting 30% of the damage that's hitting us after this many protections, right? Then I get to 30%, I stun them, giving myself time to get out. But think about what else I'm doing. Think about what else I'm doing, right? Not only am I stunning them, but because I'm under 30%, I have 1.5% damage mitigation for every single. So at that point, I'm at absolutely full mitigation, right? I'm at full mitigation, so 15% damage mitigated, right? Plus Spirit Robe, that's another 15, that's 30. Plus Ani, that's 39. Then another 15, then a 30% of whatever's left. So 30, 49, 39, excuse me, plus whatever's left is reflected to them after I stunned them. So really, there's no way that I die if my team's at level with the enemy team, right? And I go in and I pop all my abilities and they work in the right order, they work when they're supposed to, and I don't just get completely blown up, or my backline doesn't get completely blown up, and my damage is able to follow up on me, then my tankiness is insane here. Now, this last item, Nemean, really good item. It functions really well with his 2. It functions really well with Thorns. Right, so let's see. Upgraded Thorns, his 2, and Nemean together. That's 25% of basic attack damage. That's 40% of damage before the mitigations, right? So now remember, we're taking like no damage because we're mitigating all of it, and they don't feel any of those mitigations. They take the full ass damage to their face. And they don't get to lifesteal. They only get to lifesteal for 50%. Then on top of that, you're propping your 2. And your 2's coming out. And that's another 30% after the mitigations, right? So that's a really good item on him. For a lot of tanks that aren't Kuzenbo, Sav is a really solid item there. It gives you more health, and it gives you an insane amount of fizz prot. So now we're
And the aura.
And the aura as well. And the aura is not just physical defense aura. The aura is also HP 5 aura, and that's like incredibly important. HP 5 aura is insanely good. So now we're at 302 prots. We're at 268 match prots. We're still maxed out on CCR without overcapping for no reason. We're at 3250 health. We're at 65 HP 5. We're at almost 1,000 mana. MP5 is at about 40. Cooldown, we're about half cooldown. Like, this is an insanely solid build right now. We can switch it for the Nemi. We can switch it for an Emp Armor. What else? What else do you think we could probably switch that for? And realistically, in a normal build, at least for support.
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm paying attention. What am I switching for? What for?
Last item slot. Nemean, Sov, Relic. What else? I like Nemean and Sov.
I
They're
mean,
probably
I
more
like
than
Relic.
anything.
I probably would have gotten it before the Mantle, but
Oh,
I
100%. Yeah.
always love the Relic.
Yeah, 100%. I think Relic or Sov here probably, and then the Mantle.
It's hard. Like fucking everything about support builds is pretty situational in terms of what you're against. So like,
it
when
really
you
does
grab
depend.
that Relic Dagger is.
And then the other thing, right? You might have to go Sovereignty here because you might have two physical gods that are like absolutely fucking up your backline that you have to just give those extra prots to, right? So now you're giving any ally that's near you gets 25 extra protections just from you. Then on top of that, you get those aura yourself. The aura affects you as well. So you get 45 protections, but you also get that 15 prots from that. So that's 60 protections for you. It only says 45, but that's 60, right? So right now we look, right? We see 302 protections. That's before it, is it before it maxes in the aura or no?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember in
If
the
you're
tab.
dead, it'll be without the aura, but you're not
Okay,
dead.
I'm gonna go kill myself then. BRB going to kill myself. Actually, I can probably do it the quickest in Phoenix. Let's grab a Phoenix.
What's your protection set now?
302 Fizz Prots. 302 Fizz Prots, 268 Match Prots. And I mean, look how long I can take this. Alright, my mids are maxed out. That doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I think throw on Emperor's Armor and laugh.
Yeah, Emp's armor is hilarious on this guy. That's the mantle proc. Alright, let's Alright, so it was doing both auras. Okay, cool. I was doing both auras. So, do you see how much those auras do for me? Like, that's insane. That's absolutely nutty. So both of those are really good. I think the Emp armor is also good. And then for boots, what I'd probably do is for boots, I'd switch it out for the relic. And you don't need an Emperor's Armor after 30-45 minutes in the game unless the enemy team has one because sieging is incredibly difficult, or unless your team just simply cannot siege. Like if you don't have a hunter and if you don't have a mage that can do auto attack damage, and if your jungler isn't able to go in really, and you have to only team fight, Emp can be good. But yeah, this is probably somewhat
I
close
counter
to what I'd
that
go for.
with when I notice that the other team is really, really bad, I will almost always get Emperor's Armor just because I know that their front line is going to have absolutely no idea how to siege into an Emperor Armor. And then they just can't siege. And it's hilarious. But don't do that. That's not smart. This has been another episode of Don't Listen to Selly.
So like, if you're with an entire team and you know what they're doing and you're against a team and you know that they're bad and like it's an actual team and competitive, yeah, get Emp Armors and get Emp Armors 3rd or 4th. On Fafnir, I used to get Emp Armors 4th every single game because we'd always just run people, we'd always just run at them and they'd never know how to deal with their siege.
Man, I think the meanest thing I ever did, we like steamrolled a team at level 1 and I got fucking Emperor's Armor right after boots. Like an asshole.
I've done it 3rd before. I don't think I've ever done it 1st or 2nd.
Oh, it was so funny.
Well, yeah, so
it was so funny.
That also gives you an extra 10% cooldown, switching the boots out for the Relic Digger, and then also it lowers the cooldowns of your both of your relics by 40. And yeah, I mean, I think this build is really solid. So you've got 302 Fizz Prots, you got 268 Match Prots, you got 3,400 health. You could get more Match protections if you need them, but like, once you're above about 250, more Match Prots don't matter because Obshard, Demonic Grip, and Spear of the Magus are all stupidly good and may just laugh at your penetration. the mitigations are the more important side of things, and making sure you're above that 250 mark is more important. So I think this build would do a lot better at doing what you were trying to do. And in that order, because of the power spikes that we talked about, that health effectiveness early, then hey, I'm fighting in the 3v3. I'm going in around the start of objectives. I'm going to grab that Oni. Then hey, they're starting to CC me when I dive, or hey, I'm taking abilities meant for my squishies. I get that spirit. I can't die. My backline's getting blown up. I need that Sov, or I'm just running out hunters. I need that Nemean. Then you throw that mantle in there. And now here's one thing though. If you go if I'm gonna take these back out for boots. It's gonna be shoes because I'm magical.
The sharper the
If you
better.
take that out, right? Look at my health bar. Went down to 3k. Put it back in. 32. 50. All right. Hey, thank you so much for the follow, Palms. Good to see you, dude. But yeah, so if you take that Sov out
He
there,
also says next Black Friday, look for a mic.
I love you too, Palms. You're not wrong though. It's the meme in race Discord. But yeah, so if you put the Nemean
The lighter
instead
the
of the
better.
sovereignty here, one thing you're lacking at the time you're building it, is gonna be you've built 2 items in a row without health. That's not wrong. It's not something that you can't do. It's something that you have to remember, because you most of the time are not going to be building 3 items in a row without health unless your first 3 items are all like 300 plus health items. So if you did the Nemean here, I would think about probably looking for something before that mantle, either a Sov or a relic there, probably. And the relic's super cheap. And then once you have your full speed pot and mantle, then you run the mantle here if you're going to do the Nemean after that spirit robe. But yeah, most of the time I'd go ahead and get more health there, whether that be the Sov, whether that be the relic, whatever it ends up being. Then you have your mantle here,
Sneaking is an art.
and then it didn't go to the right place because I didn't have the spot yet. And yeah, so that would be just about how to and why to build mitigations, especially with the character with mitigations built in. Now for supports, there's actually a list. Let me go find it real quick. Screen's gonna freeze. I'm gonna switch it to a be right back screen. All right, cool. Alright, so I'm gonna switch it to that, and let me go find this list that I made, and I'll go ahead and post it in chat once I find it. Holy cow, supports talk a lot. You remember that, I probably could find it just in my DMs with Matt. The whole ass, here you go. Supports with mitigations in their kit. Alright. You're gonna love this. Massive. I'm gonna post this in chat. Hopefully you can see the chat, you just can't actually type. If you can see the chat, you'll be able to, copy and paste this. But go ahead and yoink that for yourself, and that'll show you the different supports with different kinds of mitigations in their kit. And so like you can do the same exact thing, right? Where you're just abusing your mitigations. You can do that with a lot of different people. And
Artio is my favorite for it.
Ardio's really good about it. I love Erlong. I love Erlong ulting when I'm full health and people are like, why are you healing? I'm like, I'm not. I'm mitigating everything they throw at me and then healing after it. Most people don't know Erlong ult has mitigations. It's glorious. Amaterasu too. That's why if you notice a good Amaterasu player running at you, a lot of the time when they run into their entire team, a lot of time when they're ulting, they'll have their 2-pot, and that's why they just don't take any damage. And there's different forms of mitigation, right? There's actual mitigation, then there's damage reduction. The difference is mitigation applies to damage coming to you. So when it hits your character model, a certain percentage of it is just mitigated. It's just taken out of the equation, and then the rest of it hits the protections and health versus pen equation.
I say a better way to describe it is it's mitigating the amount of power that they have.
Well,
and then that power is hitting your protections and everything.
The reason I don't want to say that is because we're going to talk about power reduction. Because it's different things.
Power reduction is just.
So then there's damage reduction that's applied to enemies, and that's their total damage output. Then there's power reduction dealt to enemies, and that's like the RDO2, that's the Baron 1 with the Hysteria. So damage reduction.
It's good to note that when it's a power reduction, that's a reduced power that's hitting everyone, right? So it's affecting your entire team rather than just you.
Yep.
Like damage mitigation.
Yep. So there's self-mitigation. So Bacchus, Kabrakan, Kuzenbo, Terra, Amma, Erlong, Baron, Isis, they all mitigate for themselves. Then for team, Athena ult mitigates 20% of damage for someone in your team. Cab passive. Kepri 2 mitigates damage. Terra ult, and then Isis ult as well. Then damage reduction is actual numbers reduced. So Jingtian 1 reduces 50% of damage output on auto attacks from anyone it's on when it's at max range. Nox ult reduces 40% of the damage. Ymir passive, anyone who's frostbit, only does 10% less damage to him. Now that's not power reduction. Their power stays the same, but their damage is just scaled down by 10% after the damage is calculated. Power reduction affects it similar to mitigation, where it's affecting the damage that's coming out of them, or it's affecting the damage before it hits your equation, right? It's taking their power number down, and then their attack or their ability or their auto is thrown at you. So yeah, so you can kind of play around with that. That's one way to look at it. That's one way to kind of play around with it a lot.
You can jump into Athena's guide and play with numbers like that too.
Yeah.
See how stats work with and against each other.
And then you can go ahead and type in. Do you mind putting exclamation point guide in the chat and it'll like pop up with the link?
Wait, what?
Can you like put exclamation point guide in the chat and it'll pop up with the link? I need a screen that's just like me talking and not being in Smite game. There you go.
Wow, you're a troll.
There you go. Thank you. Sorry, I'm looking at chat stuff on my phone. But yeah, so that's how and why to build mitigations. I'm trying to think, is there anything that like I didn't really talk about that like we could or that would be useful to in terms of mitigation specific things?
I'm not sure, my dude. I'm gonna say you got all of it. Then the second that we stop doing this, I'm gonna remember.
You're gonna be like, what about this? And I'm like, screw you.
Yeah. It'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Yeah. So I mean, the whole idea is stacking percentages is fucking insane. Any percentages that you can stack is insane because percentage of a percentage, like all those base numbers and shit, is just insane. So you start stacking those percentage, you get low, you get 15% damage mitigation. Actually, I'm just gonna go take some damage from something. Let's just eat
You still have a be right back screen.
I know. I'll switch that. Thank you.
I wouldn't put it past you to not know though. That would be hilarious.
I literally wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, I'm just gonna keep talking and then I'll put myself low and see the number, and I'm like, well, it would be helpful for them to see the number too. Yes.
Troll.
So yeah, I'm not even taking damage from these first. Wait, did I step in the? I feel like I stepped in. Give me a second. I feel like I may have stepped in God mode by accident. There you go.
No, you were taking control.
I wasn't before. Now I am.
Weren't?
No.
Huh. Good
All right.
job.
So this is full mitigation stacks. Let's get over to the Odin bots. No, we're not gonna get there in time because we don't have someone with us. But yeah, like you can get that 15% mitts plus the Oni plus the spirit. Then it's hitting everything else that you have, right? Then it's hitting all of the rest of your stuff. Then on top of that, your 2 pops, you pop thorns, you pop ult, you disturb them. Then your mantle proc hits. Like it's just the giant fuck you to the entire enemy team once you get your build online. The big thing I'd say with this guy, a lot of people who play this guy think they're this tanky from minute 1. You're not. Get your levels online. max your abilities, get 3 or 4 items online, then you can just walk at everyone, and you have to time your mitigation abilities at a really good time. But like once you have 3, 4 items online, yeah, sure, just walk at people. But early, be smart about it. Don't just yeet yourself at people just for the heck of yeeting yourself at people. Um, you want to be able to be in a position where, early game, the whole idea of the early game is if I farm better than you, I'm setting myself up better to kill you when I have items online and actually have kill potential, right? Whereas if I'm just running at you from minute 1 and I kill you 3 times but I die twice, okay, I'm not really ahead, am I? Not really. Whereas if I kill you 0 times but like I don't die, but like I have 18 more waves than you and like 35 jungle camps, and obviously those are stupid numbers. But like, do you get the whole idea there is just looking at what you're doing and why you're doing it. Um, but yeah, so that's a short guide to how and why to build mitigations, why you stack it with health, how protections work with the mitigations, stacking percentages, item passives, working with mits as well, and I can't think of anything else if there is anything, Medi.
No, I can't think of anything better.
All right, cool.
I don't know. I guess it's just important, like with Kuzumbo, you're doing damage based on being outrageously tanky, not based on having damage, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
All right.
yeah. Not like my old team, we always used to pick Kuzumbo solo because fucking that was back when Op Wash was meta.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so funny because this poor man we'd get into a team fight, my Kuzumbo would stand in front of the Op Wash.
You did your lag
and the
thing.
Op Wash just can't.
You did your lag thing.
That's fine. But yeah, like we'd have pick Kuzumbo solo into an Op Wash. And my little Kuzumbo not so little Kuzumbo would just stand in front of the Op Wash, and then the Op Wash cannot do anything. Like, the Op Wash uses his kit and he dies.
That sounds fun and interactive.
Oh, it was so fun.
That sounds both fun and interactive.
Yeah, no. Yeah, fucking honestly, every single support that I build at this point, I have, like, minimum 250 prods of each, unless it's a weird game.
And that's not normal. That's not always. That's not always
that's because I'm playing weird ass casuals, and I'm a meme. But
no, I'm not. I'm saying like that in comp, especially like in higher level play, it's not always a thing. Sometimes you're doing a lot more utility shit than just being tanky. In casuals, though, 100% go for that. 100% go for that 100% of the time. Just be a tanky bug. You do more damage when you're alive. You peel more when you're alive. Like a lot of people look for big flashy numbers and cooldown, and I need to max my cooldown by my 4th item or this or that, And honestly, no, you don't. You don't at all. I think it's really you do a lot more when you're alive still. So sometimes I build super utility, and when I do that, I do it because I know I'm not going to be the one getting picked. I'm not going to be the dive target. I'm not going to be the one being paid attention to. I'm going to be allowed to just sit back and keep my people alive, and then I can go more utility. And when I'm the frontliner, ya boy building big boy. And if you're gonna whine about not having auras, okay, I'm just not gonna peel for you then. Alright, so Yamoja is a completely different ass god, right? So this is a god where you are in the middle of the entire enemy team, you're running at people, you're doing stuff, you're give me 1 second, I'm getting a phone call, I need to check this. Nope. Alright. So yeah, for a god like Yamoja, you're looking much more towards cooldown utility and control than you are being the tank yourself. You do tank things, don't get me wrong. But her abilities aren't disrupting the enemy team. Her abilities are all about controlling space, funneling you into a space, keeping you there, slowing you there, stun locking you, healing her entire team. Her ult is not to say you have to stay here. Her ult is to split the entire team fight and say you don't get to help this person. or to
It's
split
disgusting.
an entire siege and say none of you get to be here, right? And so you're doing completely different things with it. That's why support builds especially are so different. But every build for every character is so different, because what you have to do when you're building someone is not say, hey, what items are good. You have to say, okay, what is the role of my character in my job, right? And when I say role, I mean what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to function in the team fight? Not like what role am I playing, carry, jungle, mid, you know. I mean what role do I have? Do I have the role to sit on my back line and just bot peel from a hard carry? Do I have the role to initiate and then play between my back line and the enemy frontline dive? Do I have I'm just going to sit right on top of them? Do I have the I'm just going to be Hercules and just run at your carries even though I'm quote unquote support? You know, so you have to think about what role does my character have in the job that I'm going to do. And then you think about, okay, so that's the role that I have. What items allow me to do that the most effectively? What items give me what items emphasize my strengths and hide my weaknesses, right? So like if you're a god that can only backline peel, you have to be able to frontline if push comes to shove, right? So you can't just build full CDR and then some power, because like I'm peeling, okay, congrats, and then you're dead, right? So it's not just doing one thing. It's not just doing the other. For frontline, you can't just build 4 full tank items that have no CDR, no movement speed, no, you know, it's you're thinking about, okay, so what is my role? How can I do that the best that I can with my play and with my items? Then you think about how can I accentuate my strengths and how can I do my best to lessen my weaknesses, right? And that's really what you're thinking about when you're building. For instance, I had a game earlier today. I was playing, I want to say it was a Horus game, and I was playing into Freya, Huyi, Ymir, and Yorm. I don't even remember who the jungler was. The jungler was friggin' irrelevant because we just ran him. But I went Gauntlet, straight into Winged Blade, straight into Spirit. Um, so because they had a slow on every single character they were playing. Every single one. Pele. Pele was the jungler. And Pele was the only character that didn't have that slow, right? And so as soon as I had my gauntlet finished, as soon as I was starting to stack it, I went straight into Winged Blade to allow myself to have the effective health of not standing in all their slows. I was effectively way more tanky because I wasn't in their damage. Because anytime I got hit by a slow, zoom, zoom, your boy's out of there. Right? Then I went Spirit Robe because when my passive is down and they catch me in that slow, they're gonna catch me in the Ymir stun. They're gonna catch me in the Banish. They're gonna catch me in the Pele knockup. They're gonna bounce me with the Ricochet. They're gonna knock me up with the Yorm, right? So that Spirit Robe gives me those mitigations, right? And I don't even remember what I built after that. But like that, it's a whole different thing where my job, right? My job is to set up and peel when I have to. My job is I'm looking to be on the front foot, but I'm saving at least something in case someone comes out of nowhere to get my guy out. And the way I was able to do that, what made that effective, you don't build Wingblade that much. But into that comp, Wingblade Spirit Robe that early allowed me to do my job, allowed me to perform my role for the team correctly. And so you kind of look at doing that every single game, and it's going to be different every single game. The build that I gave you is not a build that you can use every single game. It's not. There are going to be games where it's different. There are going to be games where you have to get Sovereignty before you get Gauntlet. There are going to be games where you go Sovereignty, Gauntlet, Ani, Spirit. There are games where you're not going to build either because shit gets weird, man. You know, there are games that you're gonna want to get, and I'm not kidding. There are games where you're gonna want to rush Mageyes either right after boots or right after your gauntlet. It's a whole ass weird world in support. But you're basically just thinking about, hey, what is my job? What items allow me to do that job the best while hiding the jobs that I can't do, while helping me at least pretend to do the jobs that I don't get to do as much. So yeah, that's generally the idea and this was turned into more of like a support building philosophy than yeah, exactly. You have to have an insane amount of awareness as a support because you have to be able to counter build. First off, you're building to help your team. What does your team do? For instance, if you have 2 really strong auto attackers, getting a sprint and upgrading it is really good because you give them both haste. Getting a frenzy could be better though if they have a lot of burst, right? Or getting a shell if they need to be if they have a lot of dive on the enemy team, right? You know, and then you're counter building against the enemy team comp. Then on top of that, you're counter building against the enemy items, right? Then on top of that, you're counter building with keeping in mind levels, your own team's levels, your own level, the enemy supports level, the enemy carries level, who's doing damage to whom. Like there's so much that you have to track as a good support, and that's before we even start getting to timer. This is just talking about builds, and that's before we start getting to timers, team fights, all that stuff. Support is honestly the easiest role to play at the lowest level and the hardest role to learn to play properly. It's just there's so much to it, and it's the easiest to just say, okay, I'm gonna play a support, I'm gonna peel, I'm just gonna do things, right? Like sure, anyone can do that, but to play support well and to play it properly, there's so much game awareness and so much just instant decision making and so much keeping track of everything in your head, that there's a lot more that goes into it. Yeah. Do you have any other questions, Massive? Because I don't want to end this VOD before I've answered all your questions, because I want to be able to save the VOD for you so you can go back and look at it. But I want to make sure. All right, cool. Did you have anything else, Silly?
No.
Okay.
We're Gucci.
All right, cool. I'm going to go ahead and go offline now. This has been how to build supports and why to build them that way with Glacier and Silly.